What's up YouTube, College Lefty Gaming, back at it again with another video. This video is going to be kind of a hitting tips and pitching tips along with Quirks explained. It's going to be a little bit of how I use Quirks and how I attack certain players. The first player that has a good amount of Quirks is Bryce Harper. He's also on my squad, so I want to go over him a little bit. The 109 discipline is going to play a big effect in check swings and drawing walks. Any borderline pitches that are thrown near the outside of the zone or whatever, and you tap the swing button or the square button, you may get a check swing on a pitch that's like borderline strike or a ball. Another thing to keep in mind is that Bryce Harper excels when hitting with 2 strikes. He hits fastballs better with no penalty, so that means you can move your PCI a little bit more viciously to the baseball and still make good contact. As far as some other hitters that don't have the quirk, if you move your PCI too fast to the baseball and swing, you're going to get a penalty towards that. With Bryce Harper, that quirk affects fastballs and breaking balls with him, so the best pitch to throw him would be a changeup or something that a curveball below the zone or something that he's not going to be able to really do some damage on. Another thing that Bryce Harper has is night player, which increases his PCI size at night, as well as giving him higher exit velocities with that PCI size. And that's the same thing that pressure cooker does with guys who are on second and third base, or the controller's vibrating. You're going to get higher exit velocities, be able to make contact easier, and just especially with those other quirks added to it, are just going to make an amazing player. Mike Trout has a few different quirks. He's got Road Warrior, performs better on the road, increased PCI size with that. First pitch hitter, increased PCI size on the first pitch. And a lot of hitters that have this quirk get really bad pitches on the first pitch. They get a lot of balls out of the zone. So I'm looking for like one pitch in a certain spot. And if I don't get it, I'm not going to swing. Mike Trout also has a few quirks like Speedster or Thief, excels at stealing bases. That just helps with jumps and stuff like that. I wanted to focus more on the offensive quirks. I want to say that Road Warrior, first pitch hitter, and Rally Monkey, whenever I'm using Mike Trout and I'm losing in the game and we're on the road, he has a huge PCI size. I want to say it's like around 75 vision when his vision is not that high on his regular card. Next is JD Martinez. I want to talk about him because he has some really good active quirks for a live series card. And what I mean by active quirks are these ones that I've been mentioning. Home body, which other than Mike Trout, or like opposite of Mike Trout, he plays better at home. Dead red, fighter, and situational hitter. Fighter this makes JD Martinez a great pinch hit batter later on in the game when you're in like the 9th inning and even the home team trying to walk it off or whatever. And that quirk will also go into effect with situational hitter. If there's a guy on third base with less than 2 outs, his PCI size is also going to increase. So if you combine all 4 of these hitting quirks at once, JD Martinez, it's going to be a really tough out at the plate. I noticed like he hits fastballs that are inside off the hands. That's because he doesn't have that penalty with those fastballs, and he can really do some damage late in the game. So I definitely use this card off the bench. Kris Bryant is another one that has dead red. If you watched my last video, you noticed that I hit a cutter that was like middle away. I pulled it with moving the PCI. There was just less penalty on that specific pitch. The bomber quirk and hitting machine quirk just allow the hitter to have have a no doubt animation with the regular X swing, more likely with good PCI placement obviously, and hitting machine just allows them to get a few more base hits than they probably would have if they didn't have that quirk. It doesn't really do anything. It pretty much represents a high contact attribute in the 80s for the most part, with power for bomber in the 80s and contact in the 80s for hitting machine. But I noticed not all players have it, so I think the reason for that is because the contact and power attributes for both left and right are not above 80. Maybe one of them is and the other one is below it, so that's why they wouldn't have hitting machine. But now we're going to get into Victor Martinez. Here he has really good stats, really high vision, high clutch. The clutch is what causes pressure cooker. The vision is what causes 20/20 vision, which means excels at hitting the ball when swinging more often. So that means he's going to be good with in a strikeout situation when the opponent's trying to get a strikeout. Say you have a guy on third base with 1 out or something like that. Victor Martinez is the guy you want at the plate trying to drive him in, even though he doesn't have live series active quirks like plays better at home, hits fastballs better. He still is going to play a little bit better than his stats in certain situations because of his high attributes and that they do go above 99. So this is a good example of Victor Martinez does not have bomber, but but one of his attributes is in the 95 for power, and then the other one is 68. That's the reason why he doesn't have bomber. So I kind of wanted to touch on that a little bit. Here's Ken Griffey Jr. Has a little bit lower vision at 87, not quite in the hundreds, but I think the threshold for vision for 2020 vision the quirk is about 85. I noticed some people with 82 don't have it. Ken Griffey also has high contact, so he's got the hitting machine. He's got a high reaction time for quick reflexes, has a great arm, and performs better, gets a little bit higher exit velocities with runners on base. So definitely Ken Griffey doesn't have the most power because he's not anywhere close to his immortal version, but this card does have some sneaky pop and can play very good defense for you, obviously, with that diamond fielding. But just quirks like that make him better on defense, a little bit extra range. Here with this Chipper Jones, he's got a high contact attribute versus both sides with not as much power, only 80 vision, so he doesn't have that 20/20 vision thing. He's got 116 discipline, so that helps when check swinging, and 85 clutch does give him the pressure cooker quirk. So I think the pressure cooker quirk threshold is about at 85, similar to the 20/20 vision one. And the hitting machine is right around there at 80 to 85. I want to say Kris Bryant has less than 85, and he has it. So now we're going to get into the pitchers here with Bret Saberhagen starting it off. I really like this card a lot. I've used him a bunch. He's actually become my ace over Don Sutton, but that's because pretty much he seems like he pitches better than his stats because of that clutch. If anybody gets on base, the clutch attribute is kind of tricky, so it rivals the opponent's clutch attribute with the guy that they have at the plate. So with 120 clutch, that's going to max out overpower most hitters besides the immortal cards for the most part. So that means that the opponent's going to have a smaller PCI when swinging. Before they start their swing, you're not going to notice anything. But once they start to swing the bat and try to make contact with a runner on base, their PCI is going to be smaller, and they're going to have to really square it up in order to get a hit. Another thing to keep in mind is that he has workhorse, stingy, control artist, grounded. He also has illusionist, which is another good quirk, and the breaking ball quirk. So almost all of his pitches are boosted up except for his fastball, which his fastball plays at a 95 mile per hour and really gets on hitters. So this card is very good, very underrated, and plays above a 90 in my opinion. He also has grounded, so excels at limiting home runs. That's more of a simulation quirk. It does mean that the opponent really has to square the ball up to hit it out though. Here we get into Johnny Cueto. I wanted to use Johnny Cueto as an example because he does not have a sinker. I wanted to keep that in mind, that he doesn't have a sinker, but here on his quirks, he has the sinker baller quirk. That just means that his two-seam fastball has a lot of movement, and he also has the changeup quirk, which also means that his changeup has a lot of movement, has a lot of break on it. That's how you get those types of quirks. Same thing with the fastball quirk. I'll be getting into that later on. But Johnny Cueto is really effective if you can mix that two-seam and that cutter inside and outside, mix up that changeup, set up that slider, and then use the fastball as like a blow-away pitch every now and then. The Orel Hershiser, I wanted to use him because he does have a sinker as well and has the sinker baller quirk. Has a little bit of a couple different quirks here. Excels at limiting base hits, which just means that he has a high hits per 9. It's above 80 something, 85 range. And hitters are just going to have to square the ball up a little bit more to get those base hits. That quirk kind of rivals with the hitting machine quirk that a lot of hitters do have. If they excel at getting base hits, it kind of just equalizes these quirks out type of thing, I want to say. And then same thing with bomber and excels at limiting home runs. I mean, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. If you mess up a pitch, it's going to be sent out of the park. It's online play, so it's a lot of user control. Here's the pitcher that I actually don't have. I just faced him yesterday, and I will be posting a video gameplay on this. And Noah Syndergaard is a really good pitcher in this game. He's got the excels at limiting walks, which means his walks per 9 are in the 80s. He excels at limiting home runs and throws an extremely effective fastball. This fastball quirk I don't see on too many guys. Usually they have a 97 plus fastball, high velocity, and that fastball has a lot of movement. I noticed on another card, Charlie Morton, he doesn't have that fastball. The live series one, and his velocity is at 94. But anyways, we're getting into Jon Lester here. Jon Lester is a really good card from the event, an event reward. He has also the 80 walks per 9. I wanted to include that because he also has the control quirk, excels at limiting walks. He has the knee buckler quirk, which if he had a slider, which would also affect it, but since he only has the sweeping curve, it just makes that pitch a lot better. It means he has a lot of break on it. It's clear because that pitch has the most movement. if you can mix in the cutter, the sinker, the changeup, and the curve, I mean, this pitcher's pretty deadly. I do like a lot of pitchers with sinkers and cutters and changeups, just a combination. And I mean, he's got 5 pitches, really nice repertoire, good budget pitcher to get. Here is just an example of a pitcher that doesn't quite meet any of the thresholds. He has a 79 walk per 9 and really low K and hits per 9, so he doesn't actually have any quirks at all. I just wanted to use him as an example to show you that I'm not just making this up. This is based off of the attributes. Here, Gerrit Cole is another good example, probably going to go up and go diamond this week. But here he has an 80 K per 9, and that's his only quirk that he has. Even though he has 85 velocity, he doesn't have the fastball quirk because he doesn't have really a lot of movement on it or a lot of break on that pitch, and it's just not fast enough for that specific quirk. I'm really kind of wondering what makes the cheesy quirk available, because here's another good example. Carlos Carrasco is just barely underneath these thresholds, and he only has the 2 quirks, the illusionist and the knee buckler quirk. That means he has a lot of break on his changeup and his breaking ball pitches. He's one guy that has two pitches that break, so the slider and the curveball both are going to have a little bit of a boost. Normally it boosts the one that's a little bit better, and it's noticeably on that pitch. So hopefully this video helped you guys out a little bit and understand quirks. If you have any questions, I'm going to be going over another tip video through gameplay coming up here with a friendly game that I played. But peace out.